If there's no further debate, the question is on agreeing to the resolution. Those in favor will say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed is no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
And what could be their last public act, the January 6th committee wrapped up with a profoundly unserious move. They voted, as you just heard, to subpoena President Trump. Of course, he's not going to testify. They know that. He knows that. And it's very likely that the Supreme Court wouldn't even uphold the subpoena. But there you go. Tom Dupree is here, formerly with the Department of Justice, one of America's most sought-after legal experts these days. It's good to see you, Tom, as always. What's the chance of Liz Cheney questioning Donald Trump at some point?
I'd put it somewhere between 0 and 0, Leland. I think you hit the nail on the head, where the vote today, in my view at least, was largely a symbolic gesture. I think even the members of the committee understand that there is virtually no chance that there would come a day where Donald Trump would go before the January 6th committee and testify. But to your point, if this was their final chapter, I think they wanted to end on a dramatic note and make that gesture.
Right, and that's always been the knock on the committee, right, that it was more about drama and it was more about the TV show than it was about sort of illuminating facts and letting both sides sort of look at them and have to face those facts. That's the public side of this committee. The private side has been thousands upon thousands of hours of depositions, probably tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of documents, phone records, emails, text messages, on and on and on. We heard today about Secret Service records, and there's the list, 10,000 documents, 860 depositions, 1 million Secret Service documents. Okay. Is that what we should really be thinking about and looking forward towards?
I think that's the next step in this whole process. Is this committee is going to release a written report. My guess is it will be a voluminous report, even though it'll probably only have a fraction of all the information that the committee collected. But I think the committee views its role as serving several purposes. One is to at least put a spotlight on January 6th. Another is to put before the public the evidence and the testimony that they collected. And then I think another purpose is just to build what they would see as a historic record, that they went out, they talked to a lot of people, they collected a lot of evidence. It would have been nice if there had been some, Republican appointed members of the committee. But nonetheless, they're going to put together a historic record that all the American public will have a chance to read and draw their own conclusions from.
They will draw their conclusions, as potentially will the Department of Justice. Here's Liz Cheney on that.
Our committee may ultimately decide to make a series of criminal referrals to the Department of Justice. But we recognize that our role is not to make decisions regarding prosecution.
All right, former principal deputy assistant attorney general, put that hat on for a minute. What is going to be the balance for Merrick Garland and the other leadership at the DOJ, who obviously are embroiled in an enormously controversial prosecution as it relates to Mar-a-Lago, an investigation there? How do they have to weigh this?
Absolutely. It's possibly the most complex question you can imagine an attorney general ever having to confront in his tenure. I think the first thing they have to do is get their head around the evidence they have. And to do that, they need to look at the evidence that the committee collected, that DOJ investigators themselves have collected, and look at not just the inculpatory evidence, meaning the evidence that would tend to show the president's guilt, but they also have to take into account the exculpatory evidence, evidence that a jury might say, look, the president didn't commit any crime. Then once they've made that assessment, they need to take on what really would be a historic question of, even if you had enough evidence to go before a jury, does it really make sense at our nation's history and at this point in our nation's life to bring an indictment against a former president of the United States? That's the $64,000 question here, Leland.
Yeah, $64,000, probably lowball. You got to add inflation to that. I think about some of the things that we saw during the January 6th hearings, and some of them weren't real evidence of crimes, but was just sort of getting a look into what happened on that day, as we all watched on television or reported on it as I did. Here's a clip that was played, that was taped on January 6th of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer in their secure location in the Capitol. Take a listen.
Been approached about the Virginia National Guard.
They're breaking windows and going in, obviously ransacking our offices and all the rest of that. That's nothing. The concern we have about personal harm, personal safety is just transcends everything. But the fact is, on any given day, they're breaking the law in many different ways. And quite frankly, much of it at the instigation of the President of the United States.
How does this work if it ever does go to a jury or there ever is an investigation that the jury pool has now seen in primetime television and daytime hearings all of this evidence that may or may not be otherwise admissible?
I hear that exact concern, and it's a very difficult question because on one hand, to your point, normally when you're choosing a jury, you wouldn't want to select jurors that might already know a whole lot about the incident that they're going to decide. And in this case, you know, pretty much all Americans, most Americans have heard a lot of information that ultimately won't be admitted into evidence. On the other hand, if you say, okay, we're only going to choose jurors who don't know anything about January 6th, well, you'd have to wonder, you know, what sort of person has no idea about what happened on January 6th, and should that person be serving as a juror? So I think it's a complicated question. It's a fine line that the prosecutors and the defense are going to have to walk in selecting a jury if this case ever sees the light of day in a courtroom.
Yeah, it's a great point. Hey, Tom, it's good to see you as always. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.